Hi. I'm the unpopular philosopher, and today we will talk about China and how they managed to screw themselves over the years, despite being one of the most promising countries in the world. China has always been a vast and powerful yet fragile country. Divided in its history among dynasties, the first being the Xia dynasty in 2070 BCE, China saw its first unification and rise to superpower in 1644, as the Manchu Qing dynasty drove out the Ming. From then on, a series of rebellions, wars with European powers, a opium crisis, multiple invasions from Japan and Russia, and a devastating civil war with the warlords and the KTM ravaged the nation of China. A small glimpse of hope would come in 1949. The CCP, Chinese Communist Party, took power in the mainland and kicked the KTM to Formosa, today Taiwan, the 7th of December of the same year under the guidance legendary Mao Zedong, well remembered for his iconic hairline. Let's start with the most famous series of policies: population mismanagement. China's population is huge. China counts around 1.41 billion people, making it the second most populated country in the world at the moment, as it recently lost its 224 years held title to India in April 2023. Chinese population problems came around the 1950s. After the Chinese 1911 revolution up to the Civil War, in the span of 38 years China had lost around 30 million people. Adding to that, there were around 25 to 30 million opium addicts, of which hundreds of thousands died from overdoses or diseases every year. Mao Zedong inherited a starving, poor and destroyed country, a century behind the rest of Asia and the industrialized world. Believing that a huge population was needed to make his country a military and industrial superpower, he made his own version of Stalin's 5-year plans. He distributed land among the Chinese farmers, with the help of the Soviet Union began campaigns of public hygiene, vaccinating millions of Chinese citizens, installing sanitations and cleaning villages up, building rudimentary infrastructure and the promotion of literacy among the public. He also acted swiftly on the opium crisis, with mass campaigns of eradications of opium farms and the mass execution of traffickers. Addicts in the millions were also taken away and forced into work camps for compulsory medical treatment to then be used as labor. With all this policies, China mortality plummeted while birth rate remained the same, giving way to a huge population boom. Bolstered by the huge population, Mao Zedong began the Great Leap Forward in 1958. This crude attempt at quickly industrializing a huge nation was disastrous, because as part of the plan land was collectivized, as millions of citizens were forced to leave the farms to work in factories. To obtain iron and steel, farm tools were melt, farming land area was reduced, increasing excessively plant density. Officials had to follow unreasonably high standards, and cherry on top, a lot of actually helpful birds and animals that killed vermins were also killed by the army. What followed was a massive famine, killing 30 million people and reducing the fertility rate. After that, another boom followed, scaring the CCP to implement family planning policies in the 1960-70s, then the zero growth rate policy in the 1980, and then the one-child policy, which lasted up until 2015, when they made the two-child policy, and then abandoning it all in 2021. This 60 years of population curbing worked so well. Now China has a huge elderly population, a very low birth rate and a huge shortage of young workers, and in 2100 is estimated to have to 512 millions. During Mao Zedong's stay in power, China followed the Soviets' planned economy model, as the CCP took control of all manufacturing, resources and agriculture and began the necessary structuring to modernize China. This policy failed for a multitude of reasons. First of all, China was and still is a massive country in both terms of territory and population, big as continental Europe and with nearly double the population. Unlike the Soviet Union, which had autonomous local authorities and a federal apparatus, China was strongly led by a unified central government, which soon found itself dealing with a massive and falsified amount of data, which made making effective policies hard. China also lacked skilled workers, an entrepreneurial class, substantial education, teachers and researchers, which would end up burning large resources of the party to be formed. Between excessive bureaucracy, faulty and inefficient factories as the party didn't possess the know-how. At Mao's death the CCP decided to change. The face of change became Deng Xiaoping. Deng decided it was time to use China's huge population as a base for factory workers, opening up to the market economy. The first step was to abolish communes and give the farmers their own plots of land back, letting the farmers invest and manage freely their own product. While they kept control of strategic business, like energy, transportation and defense, they privatized a whole set of industries in a mixed market economy. They then opened special economic zones all across the nation, making trade and business partnership much easier in that zones. The most famous is a former British colony named Hong Kong. China's rapid economic development and population policies have led to significant consequences shaping its present and future. The one-child policy, implemented in 1979, drastically reduced birth rates, leaving the country grappling with an aging population and a shrinking workforce, which strains pensions, healthcare, and overall economic growth. Rapid urbanization created wealth in coastal cities but left rural regions behind, fostering inequality in social tensions. Excessive reliance on debt-funded investments, particularly in real estate and infrastructure, has created financial instability, with companies like Evergrande symbolizing the risks of over-leveraging. Environmental degradation from decades of unchecked industrialization has left China battling pollution, water shortages, and climate change pressures. Gender imbalance, driven by a cultural preference for male children, has exacerbated social challenges, with millions of men unable to find partners. As the nation transitions from a manufacturing giant to a consumer-driven, innovation-based economy, it faces the middle-income trap, technological dependency on foreign powers, and geopolitical tensions, particularly with the U.S. Efforts to loosen birth policies have seen little success, as young couples hesitate to expand families due to high living costs. Moreover, centralized political control often stifles private sector innovation and creates uncertainty for investors. These challenges combine to make China's path forward complex, requiring strategic reforms to maintain its global economic and political aspirations. In my opinion, China had the potential to become the largest economic and military power